Hello, everyone. Today's episode of What the Hell Are You Reading is kind of special to me, and I'm still doing a lot of work with the YouTube remix, YouTube poop stuff. So I'm hoping to be able to post more content about that soon, but working on a few things. Anyway, this is the start of a series that I want to be ongoing for quite a while, and it is going to be detailed commentary on my reading of the Book of Mormon. Look at that. That's actually ingrained. That's my grandfather's name, P.L. Preston Lee Grovenstein. I don't think anybody in the family knew that he was as into Mormonism as he actually was. So this is not just me being interested in the Mormon religious text. In a way, this is really kind of like me trying to reconnect and understand my grandfather and trying to understand this particular phase in his life. So I'm hoping to divide this into a lot of posts because honestly, I haven't even gotten 35 pages into the actual text yet. So far, I've made it a little bit into First Nephi, into chapter 17, and it's been a pretty interesting read so far. In these videos, I'm not going to offer any comment on the Mormon religion. I'm not going to offer any comment on the truth or non-truth of the religious text. That's not what this is about. I'm looking at the Book of Mormon as an analysis of religious literature, what I'm going to think of as modern religious literature. And I know that might be a little controversial, but that's just the framework that I'm looking at it. And there's already a lot of really cool stuff to talk about here. First off, the very beginning of the Book of Mormon finds us in what seems to be a little bit before the period of Babylonian exile. And I'm not a huge theologian, so I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes here. But I believe, and I think if I flipped through the first couple of pages, I believe that was around 600 BC. I'll have to double check that. The footnote I'm reading there might not be actually connecting to the text. That's the very beginning of the book, and this particular copy, I think all of them have the little story about where the Book of Mormon came from. I don't know if I'm going to cover that this time or not. I'm a little disjointed here, but that's okay. At this point in the book, what's happening is Lehi, who is the patriarch of this family, has heard from God, had an experience, his God has spoken with him, and he sees the Babylonian exile, or that something really bad is about to happen to the Israelites. This is pretty par for the course when it comes to even the Bible for this period, because the Israelites had a very complicated relationship with God, and when you read the Bible, you see constantly that Israel has fallen out of favor. They are rebelling against God. They will be punished for it. So again, this isn't really that far removed from what would be typical of the religious literature at this time. You even have the language of prophets that are foretelling of these bad things that are about to happen, and God intervenes and tells Lehi, get out of Dodge. Get out of Dodge as quick as you can. You want out of here. I'm going to establish your family as kind of the new chosen, or I don't know if he ever uses the words new chosen, but anyway, let me try to keep this plot synopsis brief, because I could go on and on just about the stuff that happens. Lehi moves with his family, and that includes Nephi, who is named for this particular book. Nephi is going to be a name that appears over and over and over again. They leave Jerusalem. They go out into the wilderness. And I want to talk about this because this has been quite possibly the most interesting thing about this book so far, is they return to Jerusalem. They don't. It's like the journey gets started. It's kind of like a Lord of the Rings, epic journey that they're taking to. I think this would be the east. They're going. Yeah, they're going to the east, and they forgot something. They forgot the Nephite record, the genealogy that connects the house of Lehi to Jacob. Now, that's really interesting for several reasons. First, the Book of Mormon was originally supposed to have been imprinted on golden plates that Joseph Smith found under a hill in New York. And an angel came to him to tell him about this. And I'm not sure how much of a record we have of golden plates being used to transmit literature or to transmit writing. The very first thing we have is that this is one of the reasons that the Book of Nephi, the Book of Mormon, excuse me, the Book of Mormon was imprinted on these golden plates, is because that's what these genealogies were written on. And if you know anything about the Israelites, and if you've read the Bible, this obsession, this interest in genealogy, it comes up over and over and over again. That's pretty typical. There's large sections of the Bible where you see, and he begat him, and he begat him. You see these long genealogies of names. The reason those genealogies exist is because they're constantly reaffirming that this line is Hebrew. It connects to Jacob. I am a son of Jacob, and Jacob is a son of Abraham. And of course, connecting yourself to Abraham is extremely important. This is actually something that persists I know this persists in Mormonism today, that they are very interested and they take very big pride in their genealogies because of the discussion and the value of it in this text, which I find kind of interesting that a lot of people are now kind of warming up to this genealogy idea. Well, anyway, back to the story. Nephi is sent by Lehi back to Jerusalem to pick up the genealogy, and this was extremely dangerous because they have to pick it up from a man named Laban. And apparently, and of course, I'm not an expert. This is my first reading of it, so I'm giving you a lot of my impressions, so some of this might not be 100% correct. It got out among among the Israelites, and it calls them Jews. They're described as the Jews, which I thought was very strange. Like, I wanted to kind of pick up my Bible to see if in the old biblical text, if they're referred to as Jews. I have memory of them being the Hebrews or the Israelites. I don't remember them being called Jews. And it's strange because when in the Book of Mormon, there's a really huge separation between the Nephites, the children of Lehi, and the children who are the Jews. And very early on, it makes this huge distinction between the Jews and everybody else that the book is focusing on. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of strange. Anyway, Laban is not a nice guy. Laban has heard that Lehi, and along with the rest of the Jews, have heard that Lehi is getting out of Dodge. Horrible things are going to happen. Jerusalem is going to fall because of, they've done bad things. Anyway, Laban is pretty dead set on protecting this genealogy. He does not want Lehi to have it, and so he rebukes and he drives the sons away over and over again, threatening to kill them. It's a pretty messed up and pretty hopeless situation, but Nephi has the faith to go back and try again. And this has been the most interesting story in this book so far to me. There's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but this one strikes me. Laban is drunk out of his mind, lying on his back outside the gates of Jerusalem. Bizarre, right? I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility. If you're drunk, sometimes things like that happen. But get this. Not only does Nephi get the genealogy, but Laban himself is extremely vulnerable to him. God commands Nephi to take Laban's sword and kill him. Hang on, because this gets really interesting. Nephi hesitates. He doesn't want to kill Laban because, there's this, you're not supposed to kill people, but God is telling him no. Kill him. Here's why this is so interesting to me. This, in my opinion, and again, this is not derision, I think this connects to an old biblical story. The story of Abraham and Isaac, but there's a very strange twist here. In Abraham and Isaac, God tempts Abraham, and tempts is a very strange word here, with the, if you want to prove yourself to me, prove your worth, prove your devotion, sacrifice your son. Now, believe it or not, Abraham and Isaac is extremely problematic in theological stories today. And people can rationalize their way out of it, that Abraham walked with God and he knew God and he understood God. He didn't question him. And in the end, God was like, I'm only kidding. Don't kill your son. It's okay. Well, the problem is this. If God came to you and said, kill your child, what would you immediately think? You would probably think you were a crazy person. And this has caused major difficulties in theology, because how do you know if that voice in your head is actually God? And how do you know that you're not a crazy person? This has caused debate for years and years, and the religious philosopher Kierkegaard reflected on this a lot, and this dread, am I crazy, or is this actually God, or is it the devil? Is the devil saying, kill your kid? Is he masquerading as God? There's a lot of problems with this. Now, the twist here is that Laban is not Nephi's son. Laban is the enemy of Nephi. God seemingly, I don't want to say rebukes, but kind of calls Nephi out. I have delivered your enemy unto you. I have told you to destroy him. And Nephi's like, okay. Kills him with his own sword. Serious stuff, right? Pretty out there. Now, here's what I think is going on here, and I'm going to try to wrap this up soon because I don't want this video to go on too long. We have a story that's playing out in the Old Testament. It's supposed to be playing out in the Old Testament, right? The Jews are about to go into exile in Babylon. This predates Christ. There's another very interesting section here where Lehi is having dreams about the coming Messiah, and he sees him as a grand tree, the perfect fruit. And there's a lot of hints of the messianic world that is coming. I believe this story is here to illustrate that we are still very much in the Old Testament, a place of a more vengeful God, a place where, these types of conflicts aren't resolved through messianic actions. They're resolved by violence. And it's very strange reading this, because in the Old Testament you have a God that is very, very stern, who is very commanding and is very, how dare you, Israel? But here in the Book of Mormon in 1st Nephi, we're still in that world, but we have the promise of Jesus coming later, and it causes this very strange discomfort that we know Jesus is coming. We've had a vision of Jesus. But I think there's still a lot of problems that Nephi lives in a world where that hasn't happened yet. Christ has not been born yet, and it causes this kind of disjointed confusion. So it's interesting in a way, and I'm going to close out with this. It's the part that's been amusing, and when I say amusing, I'm not being derisive. Lehi gets God's compass, and it's not just a compass either. It's the Liahana, and the Liahana shows him where to go, and it's got writing on it that is explaining things to him, and is changing depending on what his destination is. And one of the major criticisms of this part of the Book of Mormon has been, hey, compasses didn't exist then. Lehi could not have found a compass because no one knew what a compass was. And I'm like, that criticism kind of falls apart, because this isn't even a compass. This is a GPS in the Old Testament. And it's telling you, turn left, and God is angry at you. It's very interesting. I mean, I gotta say, as far as religious literature goes, I'm enjoying the Book of Mormon so far, and I'm enjoying it on the level. I'm not making fun of it. It's a very interesting ride. It's a very interesting religious text when you're looking at how it interacts with old traditions. And the final comment I'm going to make is Nephi's brothers are jerks, because they're constantly questioning his authority and rebelling against him. Again, that's pretty reflective of the house of Israel, constantly rebelling against God, constantly needing to be put in their place. So as far as the old symbolisms and as far as the old points that are made in the Bible, it's pretty straight. It has a lot of the stuff that's in there that participates in that very solid literary biblical tradition. So far I've enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. Thanks, guys, and hoping to have another one next week.